Welcome to the very first episode of Behind the Number. I'm Kennedy Smith. I'm going to be the producer of this new podcast, but here with me are going to be your two hosts. It's Karlina Sample and Allie Russell from the women's soccer team. How are you two this morning?
We're doing great.
Yeah, doing great.
Are we all just so excited to start this new adventure?
Yes. And our purple.
I know. Love the purple.
We picked out our logos and we thought that we would match them this morning, all wearing purple for the very first episode. So the reason that we were kind of starting this podcast was to take a deeper look at what it takes to be a student athlete. So in this episode, this is going to be our introduction episode. In future episodes, we're going to be bringing on different student athletes to tell their story and relate to our different topics of that week. But to start off, we're going to be talking about the purpose of this podcast. And then a little later on, we're going to dive deeper into our host stories so that throughout this season, y'all can better understand them and be able to relate to the experience of a student athlete. So I'm curious, what was the inspiration for starting this podcast?
Yeah, so Kennedy and I had many conversations coming on here as interviews, and I feel like different than a lot of times in what happens with interviews is, typically it's like you're asking questions and I'm answering, but Kennedy and I were just having really deep conversation and just leading a lot into things that we've struggled with as athletes regarding different mental health issues or just things that athletes typically deal with that a lot of times go unknown by the public eye. And so it was just nice to have conversation and to be able to relate. And I think it just allowed us to see that we weren't by ourselves. We could have deep conversation and just really dive into things that I think are really important to talk about. And so it just kind of sparked this desire to start a podcast and to be able to do that and have different athletes on and talk about things. So a lot of stuff that goes unknown doesn't have to go unknown any longer.
And the two of you both just finished out your careers as Aggie soccer stars. So I think it was kind of perfect timing. Y'all both wanted to get into this space, and starting a podcast together was perfect. So what would you describe your vision for the podcast to be?
We just want this to be a space where athletes can really kind of show that other side, that non-physical, non-athletic side that a lot of people often see and a lot of people can define them as. A lot of athletes go through a lot of things and are just made up of so much more than just their sport. And a lot of them have other stories to tell. So we just wanted to target that and give them a platform where they can express themselves non-athletically.
So what are going to be some of the different topics that we're going to be diving into week to week?
Yeah. I was like, who wants to go? Yeah, so we're going to be talking about just like a variety of things. Every person here has dealt with injury, all the same injury. We've all had ACL injuries. And so
that'll probably be episode number 1.
Yeah. We're just 3 of many who have dealt with injury, and it's a hard process and it's a hard thing to go through and something that we all can empathize with each other over. And so I think that's one thing that we're going to talk about. Another is scholarships, what the process is like. Getting a scholarship, coming here, what that transition looks like. Mm-hmm. NIL is a big thing. That's
a lot of stuff balancing, having to balance as a student athlete, that student part, balancing your academics, balancing extracurriculars and what kind of stress and anxieties that can bring while also trying to perform in your athletic responsibilities. So injuries, NIL, scholarships, stress and anxieties, mental health, it's a large range of topics that we have planned.
Other things that we talked about were kind of the work-life balance of being a student and an athlete, you have to travel so much, but you're also expected to get a 4.0.
Right?
And then relationships with coaches, relationships with different athletes on your team. There's a lot to balance.
Yes.
Another big one that I feel like we haven't even discussed was the transition of going from literally a child to a full adult and having to balance all of this and being just thrown right in.
Yeah.
Expected 100%. To know what to do.
Yeah. What we're going through right now.
Yes.
In a way.
Oh, and retirement.
Retirement is something to
retirement transition.
Yes, and that is a current.
What do you do in retirement? You start a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we're doing. So we're going to take a quick little break, but then we're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about y'all's experiences and what y'all went through as athletes and what you're currently going through in this transitional period. But we'll be right back because we're going to hear from our sponsor, Academy Sports and Outdoors. Welcome back to the Behind the Number podcast. We are sitting down ready to talk about what y'all's experiences have been like. So one thing that we really want to do on this podcast, we talked about this yesterday. We want everybody who comes here to come up with their cliche tagline of what their career was. So y'all know on Netflix, there's the little taglines underneath every show and movie that's like witty, funny, drama, enemies to lovers, whatever. So I challenged you two to come up with taglines of y'all's careers. So I want to hear them.
Okay. I'll go first. Mine we decided was, or we thought the best one was, make the most of your situation. And I chose that because coming into college, I came in as an injured athlete. I just had a lot of phases throughout my whole collegiate career of different roles on the team and different roles within the athletics department. And so going through an injury, recovering, getting injured again, having to recover again, being captain of a very successful season, being captain of a season that was the totally opposite, and we were just being in a rebuilding phase. It's a lot of different roles that I had to be in and just adapt to those roles and make sure I was being a team player in those roles and in all situations. And it just influenced also like the life that I got involved in and the extracurriculars I got involved in outside of my athletics, and really just broadened my mind and just opened my mind. And so, yeah, my cheesy phrase was make the most of your situation, because I feel like that's what best described my collegiate career here, I guess.
And let's dive into that a little more, because as we discussed, there were different times where you were injured, unable to play, and you always put in, from my perspective, 100% of your effort to do whatever you could with your circumstances. Mm-hmm. So when you were healthy, you were doing the most you could to make sure that your team was SEC champion. And then when you weren't, you were doing the most you could in these outside programs. You started so many different things. So just talk about all the different things that you did and how you kind of mentally compartmentalized being able to, okay, it might not be all about the sport right now, but I can do other things to help my sports community.
Right. Yeah. And that was a big thing that I learned throughout my college career and just college experience in general. My second time I tore my ACL, I learned that sports weren't as reliable as I thought that they were, or as I grew up thinking that they were, because injuries, as we all know, they're just so unexpected. They come, you really have no control over them. So when I got injured, I had a lot more time on my hands, and I was able to start a Black leadership organization within the athletics department, known as the Blueprint. It stands for Black Leaders Who Undertake Excellence, and that was really something I was passionate about. And I'm glad that I got to start it during that time, because it really opened myself and opened my mind to the professional side that I had and some other interests that I had outside of sports, and just let me to grow as a person outside of sports. And I think it really impacted my life in different areas, and just how I led off the field, and then impacted the way I led on the field, and just wanting to be there for my teammates, even when results weren't coming, making sure I could still help them and bring them up with me. So,
when was your first ACL injury?
First ACL injury was 2017. I was an early enrollee here, so I came here to College Station in spring 2018. So I got surgery like 2.5 months before I came here and finished my recovery here with the athletics department and the trainers. And everyone was so helpful. But yeah, there's a lot of lessons that you learn from recovering an ACL multiple times. I'm sure Allie will definitely hit on that. So,
was ever a moment where you thought maybe about not pursuing soccer anymore? Like maybe it wasn't your thing. You got here and you were immediately unable to play or do anything.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
It was hard, and it was something that I had to realize was out of my control. I was gonna have to go through it either way, whether I wanted to or not. The second time around, I was definitely like, okay, is this a sign? Is this, I don't know how to take it. Why is this happening to me again? But I'm thankful that I went through it a second time, because I was able to apply myself in different areas that the university had to offer. And it did make me realize, I think I still was passionate about soccer, but it kind of forced me to start thinking about a backup plan in case soccer wasn't the way that I wanted to go and wasn't something that I wanted to pursue my whole life.
After your first season, though, second year, you ended up being All-American. And then when was your second injury?
My second injury, well, oh my gosh, hold on. I have to go back in time.
I know when it was.
I came back freshman year, and then
2019.
Yeah, 2019 was my second injury. Mm-hmm. After that season, after I came back that second time, then I got I made All-American, SEC Defender of the Year. Just had a really successful season that season, and the team as a whole had a successful season, I think. And so, it was. I think I was just determined to like come back and make a statement, and just all that time being out and all those frustrations, just let it out in how I played in that season. So it was a successful season, and I'm thankful I went through it all. It just made me stronger.
It's very easy to see it as like a pretty painted picture now that everything's done, and you can see where all the positives were and the negatives make you stronger. Mm-hmm. But how hard was it to have to go through all those ups and downs in your career?
It's emotionally challenging. It's because when you get here and you kind of like get yourself established, you realize what you want. All you want to do is play, and I think me being in a position where I was playing so consistently, and then this just happened very abrupt, or my ACL tear happened very abruptly, and I think the fact that it wasn't my first time, so it was very challenging. I'm glad that it made me rethink a lot of things, and it really just made me open my mind. I keep saying that, but it just really, I think my collegiate career and experience really changed after that second injury in a good way, and just a broader experiences and opportunities that I had access to.
All right, well, Allie, what was your cheesy tagline?
Okay, so after much thought, my cheesy tagline was "one step at a time."
Okay,
why
is that?
If you forget, you can sing the song.
Sing it for us.
Oh, you have to give me the beat. Oh, we have that's a long intro. Okay, here we go. One step at a time, there's no need to rush. Okay, that's good.
I'm so sorry if you had to fast forward.
Yeah, please fast forward through that, because that was really bad. I did not sign up for American Idol.
Okay. Why is that your tagline?
So that is my tagline, just because I feel like my career here as a student athlete has just been a whole bunch of highs and lows. Like, I have just had to take, I feel like, everything just one step at a time and not try to rush through it. And I had to learn, and I tried to learn pretty soon on, just to be where my feet were. I feel like when I came here, I had so many expectations for myself, and I had so many expectations from just external factors, from coaches, people who you played with growing up. Like, there's just so many outside pressures, and the expectations can become a lot. And so I feel like when I came here, those expectations killed me, and my confidence just kind of shot down. So that was like the first step. And so, yeah, throughout my career, I feel like playing wise, it was just a lot of working to earn the starting spot, getting it, losing it, and just like this kind of cycle. And so for a while it was hard. I internalized a whole bunch of things. I want to be a very like happy human being when I'm around people, and especially around the team. I'm like, okay, show up to practice, happy face on. Like, you have to do that. And that's just what I felt like kind of was my role for a while. I wanted to be like more of that light, but it became really challenging sometimes, because internally I was like, you don't feel this way. Like, you don't feel the way that you're leading on. And so at some point in time, I feel like that was like the next stepping stone for me, was just becoming aware of my own emotions and not trying to hide it from the outside. And I feel like once I embraced that, I then was able to be more of the genuine happy, and I wasn't so hyper-focused on all the external factors. I wasn't as focused on the pressures or the fear of not performing right, and just kind of letting all things go. And that was a big thing, I feel like, for me in my career. Once I could finally let it go and just try to have fun, it was a big change of speed for me, and a really big stepping stone. Yeah, I'm kind of rambling. I do that a lot. But yeah.
That's why you have a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So it came with challenges, as every athlete faces. We all have challenges. They just may look different. But I feel like once you are in a place where you can just be aware of it yourself, and you can open up and have kind of those vulnerable conversations and just be real with people, it's a game changer because you do realize you're not alone in this. And so, yeah, I think for me, it was an amazing experience. I had so much fun. I loved the team. We also had a high and low, like we had high seasons, low seasons, but it taught us a lot as a team and a lot as individuals, I also feel like. And so I'm so grateful for that because really and truly, I mean, I ended the season with kind of like what I felt like at the time was a low, which was injury and kind of like we talked about the ACL factor. But that was just, you can never plan for something like that. That's not anything that you can prepare yourself for, that you think is ever going to happen. And so I feel like for me at the time, it was low, and I was probably in one of the lowest confusing places I've been since I have gotten to college and started my athletic career. But after a while, it was a lot of blessings, I feel like, that arose. And it came from people like Carl, who also had gone through it and were able to kind of help guide me through as well. Like give me those positive affirmations and reinforcements and just be like, hey, it's going to stink right now, but just like it will come. And so I think I look back now and I'm like, goodness, how did that happen? Like 3 months ago, 4 months ago, it's just crazy. So yeah, just a lot of highs and lows that have led to just taking things one step at a time and just embracing the moment that I'm in when I'm in it. So yeah.
Well, no pun intended, but pun intended. What would you say was the biggest hurdle you had to go over? Was it injuries or something else?
Yeah, I would say probably not. Injury was a big one for sure, but I definitely think it was like the anxiety and the lack of confidence and just the unhappiness I felt being at soccer, which was so unlike anything I'd experienced growing up. I mean, for the longest time, I guess before I came here, it was maybe like 15 years of playing, 14 years. Why am I getting shaky? 14 years of playing. And for all those years, it was just my favorite part of every day. Like it was the best thing, the thing I looked forward to every day when I woke up, and it had never given me any adversities. I had never felt unhappiness towards it. And so when I came here and I felt those feelings and those emotions of like, oof, I'm not as happy as I used to be when playing this, or I just feel anxious when I step on the field, that probably was the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome. And it took time. It took like 2 years. And it was really kind of that idea of me just fully embracing the fact that I felt that way and feeling like it was okay. And because for a long time I was like, why do I feel this way? I feel like I'm the only one. Like I feel like I'm withholding all these emotions because I must be the only one who feels this way. And I think just as time went on and talking to psychologists and Ryan, the man in the, I don't know what I was going to say. The good old athletic department? Yeah, right. He was just a huge help. And so that probably was the biggest hurdle, just because it was emotions that I had never felt before towards something I love so much. And it was that idea of you're in love with something for the longest time, but you don't feel in love with it. You just feel love. So it was kind of like trying to gain that back. So yeah.
I feel like that should be another topic that we should make one of our weeks. It's identity crisis.
Oh, absolutely.
Because athletes from the outside, from even the fans, you are seen as Allie Russell, soccer, Kennedy Smith, track, Karlina Sample, soccer.
Yes.
And being identified as that for so long, there's so much love for that. And then there comes a lot of resentment from that. And you like, when you're in this phase of life, retirement, who are you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if y'all know. I don't know yet.
I don't
Figuring
know
it out one step at a time.
Figuring it out one step at a time. Exactly.
Well, before we wrap up, are there any other things that y'all want to hit on? Any thoughts and feelings y'all have just going into this new season with this podcast?
I mean, maybe one thing. I think that if, as like viewers, just being open-minded when listening to things that athletes have to say, I feel like it allows you to have a different perspective, because it's hard to know what it's like being in anyone's shoes other than your own. But when you just are vulnerable and you listen, you are able to understand, I feel like, so much more. And I think it's so exciting to have athletes who are going to be vulnerable and share and tell us just things that are hard to open up about. So just being vulnerable and just listening, I think, is going to be really important.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like, I think I'm most excited just for like how much we're going to learn about these athletes. And about these athletes that we think are like just so involved in their sport and just focus on their sport. And we just don't know that much about them outside of the sport that they're in. Like, I'm just very excited to learn about different hobbies or different emotions or like different stories that we just didn't know people were going through at the time when maybe we should have known, or I don't know. But just like Allie said, like being open-minded and just willing to learn about people and just willing to take the time to ask them those questions that nobody's asked them before. So
yeah, well, like we said in the beginning, each week we're going to discuss a different topic, and we're going to be, us three have a decent amount of connections throughout the athletic department. Yes. So we're going to be bringing in a current student athlete every week who has a story that relates to that topic. So whether it be injuries, we can cast a net out there and pick out anybody. Anybody's been through that.
I'm sure.
But big NIL stories, that one's going to be a touchy subject, but we'll get through. I don't know why it should be a touchy subject, but it probably will be. Yeah. Just like coach-athlete relations, like just being able to form a relationship with a coach. Yeah. People who've been through these experiences, we're going to bring them on, share their stories. So if there are any topics that you guys want to hear about, feel free to comment them in the comments section. We're going to be doing a new one each week, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes, me too.
It'll be fun for sure.
So fun.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for watching this very first episode of Behind the Number. We will catch you guys next Friday.
Yes. Yep. Can't wait.
See you next Friday.
Bye.